There's a whole bunch of people on this planet that are suffering, and they're calling for aid, they're calling for clarity, they're calling for understanding. And we're at this exciting transformational transition where we go from this rich bellicose history to this rich new dawn of humanity and potential and possibilities. And we're here for this. It's worth serving that. There's benefit in that. And there's a place for your particular expression to be carved out in that whole. You will be guided because you are a specific human being with specific qualities, specific sort of functionalities, and those will be carved out for you. Now, all this impersonal crap aside, what's your purpose as a person? Welcome everyone, can you hear me? Great. Okay, today's topic is about your purpose, how to live it, what is it? And for those of you who are perhaps, for lack of a better word, more advanced, how to live this idea of a purpose, if at all, from a state of emptiness or pure being, as opposed to a personally driven, personally exciting, personally motivated blueprint, purpose kind of an idea. So it depends a little bit on where you're at in your emptiness of self, in your advancement. We have here beings of different levels of experience with the teachings, different levels of embodiment or advancement. So I will try to address this topic from some of the main sort of levels of apprenticeship, if you will, one of which you might find yourself resonating with. But in a sense, my present state is exemplifying this predicament of, it's not really a predicament for me anymore, but I very much remember it being a predicament, or it being a seeming paradox that could lead to some confusion. And that would be then the paradox, in a sense, to simplify it, between being and becoming, or between emptiness and, say, inspiration or expression, between oneness and multiplicity or duality, or the world of other selves and the mission and so on. So right now, for instance, and this is why I said my present state kind of exemplifies this predicament, I don't really feel like talking, necessarily. I could just stare into the camera for the next 2 hours, and that'd be very, very good. So it isn't always like that. Sometimes speaking comes easily to me. Sometimes the inspiration to address a certain topic is more actualized or activated naturally. So it's also a sort of a mood thing, or a different phases kind of thing. But this is perfect because I'm more absorbed in being at the moment. And so then it can take a little bit of seeming effort to step into a perspective that perceives relevance to say anything at all, or to establish anything at all, or to move any mountain whatsoever, or to help the world in any way, shape, or form, or to try to have people understand something. So maybe that's where I should start then. I'll start with how it occurs to me presently, and then I'll, in a sense, work my way back in time, or you could say lower in sort of advancement of emptiness of self. And then we'll see how the paradox shifts, and how the question of what's my purpose and how to act on it maybe changes. So at present, my experience of purpose would be what roughly, within my team and also within some of these teachings, we have been referring to as the mission. And I know the mission to some people sounds a little grandiose, perhaps, or self-obsessed or self-important, but it's really not. I mean, that's just a connotation that you can have with that term. But a mission implies, in a sense, self-sacrifice, or at least a sacrifice of self-importance. And a mission is not exactly the same as your purpose, although you can make a mission your purpose. So we can talk a little bit about those distinctions as well, like what is the difference between a blueprint, like purpose or calling, deepest desires maybe, or like what really excites you, and then the idea of a mission. But starting with my own state and my own relationship to purpose today, maybe that's a good place to start. To me, the mission is paradoxically, it doesn't seem vital. It doesn't seem real. So the mission is kind of like a dream to me. And it's as if I'm outside of that dream, but I can look at the dream. It's kind of like I have a snow globe in my hand, one of those spheres that you can shake up and there's a nice little scenery inside. So it's a little bit like I have this snow globe in my metaphysical hand, and I can see the concept of the mission, I can see the team, I can see some of the probabilities of humanity and how we can assist in their awakening and so on. And the more that I sort of focus into that dream, I can feel more of the vitality of it. the relevance of it, the realism of it, or the importance of it, and the calling of it. And at that level itself, so within the dream, that is very genuine and it's very intense or strong. The calling of humanity is very strong, and the passion behind the mission is very vivid as well. So in that sense, it's not unreal, or it's not dismissed, or it's not deflated. The mission, at its own level, is very much alive. It is very much the parameters within which our team operates, for instance. It is the alignment of our team efforts, of our projects, of our decision-making, and so on. So it's very, very valid. However, to me personally, so to speak, or I could say to me impersonally, to the personal, impersonal person, it's more like being outside of it and looking into it. So I'm able to interact with the dream of the mission and all that, which doesn't just go for the mission or purpose. It really goes for everything that has form and shape and experience. But it's kind of like standing outside of it and being able to exert influence on the dream, stepping into the dream at certain points, at certain ways, to make a difference, and to take on a role also. Usually that's what it requires, because the dream is filled with independent human minds, right? Each with their own free will. So in order to facilitate a certain difference or a shift in the collective, for instance, or the shift in the team, or even the shift in one person, sometimes you find, maybe, that you'll have to take on a role. And in order to embody that role, within that greater purpose, within that sort of vision of your mission or purpose, you then have to embody that role. And in order to embody that role, you either need to be a really, really good actor, or you need to get in touch with the actual relevance that role has and what you are about to shift or inspire into a shift for someone else, for instance. You have to feel into the relevance of that enough to where you have to zoom into that portion of the dream enough to where it feels relevant, real, valid, exciting, and so on. So in a sense, then you're stepping into a role that, again, this is all speaking sort of from my current relationship to the concept of purpose. If none of this makes any sense to you, don't worry. I'll be making it, bringing it more down to earth, so to speak. But for some of you, this might be relevant. If not now, then down the line, perhaps, as you're becoming more of a shepherd and less of a person. And as you awaken from the dream in general, from the idea that this is real. So then, in order to fulfill your role, like let's say you are an actor in a play or an actor in a movie, in order for that actor to really start crying, for instance, to really feel that, they need to really invest themselves in that story, in that character. They need to really embody that character. Now, the actor knows it's not real. So the same for me goes with my purpose. I know my purpose isn't real. I know the mission isn't real, ultimately. So in order to play a role in the mission, in order to be an ambassador of the mission, because I can see its benefit. I do understand that within that dream, there is great benefit, there's great relevance, and that I'm in a particular position with this particular body, with its particular training, and so on, to make a difference within that dream. And so I value that, I appreciate that, I continue to value that, and not sort of dismiss it in the name of absolute truth. Hence, I'm teaching, hence I'm training, hence I'm learning also. Hence, I am creating projects and perfecting things wherever I can, optimizing things wherever I can. So these are my roles as an actor, as an impersonal being, stepping into a personal role within a dream that I can understand and perceive contains a lot of benefit, and I can even conjure up, periodically I can conjure up passion, but it's much rarer these days, that I have a passion for it. Because the passion aspect usually comes from some kind of a personal concept. Now, it doesn't mean I don't have inspiration. It doesn't mean I don't have knowledge flowing through, that I don't have inclinations flowing through or actions flowing through. That's very much there, much more so than when I was a person. However, that same sense of passion and personal excitability for a particular outcome is very rare nowadays, and when it does happen, usually I can trace it back to some kind of a lack belief or some kind of a personal concept from the past, some kind of impression that I'm a human being in a world of space and time, which most of the time just doesn't seem real anymore. So these are just past impressions of past conditioning of the senses and humanity and my parents and my friends and the media and my own inclinations and biases and so on. Okay, so my sense of purpose is maybe a little bit different than the way you relate to it today, but nevertheless, this might be relevant for you at some point. So for me, to summarize, purpose is not real. It's irrelevant. It's unimportant. It doesn't affect me. It's not real in the slightest. It's got nothing to do with me. That's kind of the root of it, the ground of it. Now then, on top of that, there is a dream. I can perceive that dream, and I have certain talents and skills and ways to plug into that dream, and I value, I see benefit, and I feel called to play a role in that dream and fulfill a certain purpose. And mostly that is simply the awakening of other selves, and for them to learn about their purpose and to act on their purpose and to create a more enlightened civilization on this particular planet and make them ready for interstellar absorption, where from there they're taken care of beyond that point by other pre-existing structures, organizations, schools, and so on. And I see benefit in that, and I understand the rarity of my particular position, meaning there's nobody quite like myself in this form, just as much as there's nobody quite like yourself in this form. And so each of us have certain talents and inclinations, and we can deliver that. We can bring that to the world, so to speak. We can infuse the dream with that. We can inspire others with that. So that's kind of how it occurs to you when the dream is seen as a dream. It becomes more optional. It doesn't define you anymore. Your sense of purpose doesn't define you anymore. It's not like, oh, I need to find my purpose, and I need to express my purpose, and I want to express my purpose. That kind of passion is gone. In its place, there is a peace. There is a clarity, there is an inspiration, there is an unaffectedness, there is a freedom from suffering, and there is a greater wisdom to see where there is an actual benefit. And from that place, you're still learning about your subtle sort of inclinations, your impressions from, even past lives and things like that, drives and imbalanced sort of motivations, the need to save, for instance. Things like that, these kinds of subtle attachments will then be seen, and you'll continue to refine these things. But fundamentally, at some point, your purpose no longer defines your innermost awareness of being. That has become detached from the dream. It's become independent. Kaivalya. The concept of supreme independence. Supreme non-attachment. One who is independent is not agitated, as Buddha once said. One who is dependent is agitated. So now I can experience frustration or passion or agitation even, in a sense. But those are optional, and those are because I choose to step into a role, and I choose to take that on for a period of time. But fundamentally, that does not occur to me as myself. So imagine you're in the most passionate moment of your life, perhaps, and you're having an interaction with, say, your partner that feels very intense, and it's rich and teach learning and reflecting, and it's passionate and it's heated and it's intense and it's complex and it's whatever. Or you are working on a company and you're working with your team along those same lines, intensity, complexity, da da da. Or you're sharing something with the world. You get the idea. It doesn't matter what it is, but something intense, something rich, like a rich experience that feels like it's close to your purpose. It's got a lot to do with learning and teaching. It's at your personal edge. Imagine an experience like that, but then at the same time, witnessing it with a total clarity that none of it contains you. In fact, that none of it is ultimately real. So if you can imagine that, you can imagine what it feels like at a certain point to be interacting with the dream, and how you can then be more effective as well, even while your body is affected in the dream, even while your mind is affected in the dream. If that deeper independent awareness has truly been made independent of form, has seen through its illusory connection with this person, then even the most intense and gripping experiences it will be clear to you in that very moment that these do not define you, that these do not affect you. Even though your personality is affected, your mind's affected, your speech is affected, your emotions are affected, your body is affected, your world is affected. And there's learning in that. Still, there's nuance to be derived from that. But you're not in it. Okay, assuming that's not the case for you yet, it can be. I don't know if you want it to. It doesn't appeal to everyone, but it comes with a lot of benefits, such as freedom from suffering and misidentification and much greater clarity and wisdom and balance and peace and so on. Still the ability, though, to be passionate and to insert yourself and to play that role, but you'll be much clearer of where you're coming from. And you'll be much cleaner, more like a mirror. You'll be purer in your reflections to the world and less personal and less swayed by outcomes, less invested in outcomes, and so on. Well, I guess you get the picture. But if that ceiling has not been penetrated, if that sort of false ceiling of I am a person has not been sufficiently penetrated, and the awareness that is independent from the dream has not yet been realized, meaning that right now you're listening to my voice and you actually assume that you are, insert your name here. So if you're listening to my voice and you're not aware that none of this is you, then you are assuming some identity, which is only natural. But I'm pointing this out with a bit of a smirk to give you the idea that it doesn't have to be that way. It is an assumption. You don't have to assume that you are Anna or Duarte or Edgar or Carolyn or Betsy. You don't have to assume that. But right now it's as if your space-like non-dual awareness has been confined to sort of a background, like a cone shape, like a cone shaped, like a point with a view, a point with a perspective. So you're listening to me and you're listening with the assumption that stops at that sort of ceiling. That is your sense of, hey, I'm assuming that I'm sitting on my couch right now listening to someone else's voice. That assumption is in the background. If you're not aware of that assumption, and you've not brought that assumption into the foreground to where you are beyond even the background of the person. So if the background, the fabric of the person is not within your awareness, if you're not outside of it witnessing it, if you're not aware of it, then it's safe to assume that you're assuming that you're a person. And then the concept of purpose has a different gestalt, it has a different implication, it has a different vibe. And so the way to understand purpose is a little bit different than from what I shared just now from my own experience. So meditate on that for half a minute while I light my cigar, and then I'll make it a little bit more personalizable, the concept of a purpose, and how you can actualize that in your life even before you penetrate the ceiling. But why not for half a minute contemplate what I just opened up for you as a potential? Is that you are not who you think you are. And just by being aware of the optional nature or the falsity of I am Duarte, I am Anna, I am Caroline, and so on, see what opens up. For those of you who are perhaps at that level or approaching that level, you may have phases where it is unclear to you what to act on. Or you may have intermediary phases where maybe you think you should be inspired towards something, but you don't feel particularly motivated in that direction. Or where you simply are new to how do I navigate without motivation? Because that's essentially what I'm describing. It's a state where you have zero motivation. But I go to the gym, I practice my golfing, I work with my team. We are working on Massaro University. I get out of bed. Typically, I'm happy and excited in my mood and, gathering people around and having fun, playing games and things like that. So how does one do that? How does one not live as a vegetable from emptiness? How does one still express in a fulfilling way? How does one still feel fulfilled as a human expression, even when you've seen beyond this identity sufficiently enough, to a point where the motivation is sucked out of the equation, where the person no longer motivates you? Where getting the partner is no longer your motivation in life, where getting the money is no longer motivating your movements. So then what gets you out of bed in the morning, so to speak? What gets you to wake up and be happy when you have to take your shower for the 10,000th time in this lifetime? And you have to brush your teeth for the 10,000th time in this lifetime for no particular reason, other than whatever people say you should brush your teeth. So how do you get out of bed for that if your motivation is not to have sparkly, nice, clean teeth because you're about to go on a date which can get you laid, which might get you married, which might get you money, which might get you safety, which might get you love? That's personal motivation. Without that, why would you brush your teeth? Why would you even get out of bed? Right? So I'm exaggerating and dramatizing this a bit, but this can occur to you in that way. You can have those questions when you're feeling a little low vibe, but you have had periods where you've seen through the person, and so your motivational mechanism has kind of been shot. The reality has been taken out of your dream. Then how do you navigate from that point? I think some of you might be approaching this and might be interacting with this kind of a paradox from time to time. And I have as well, so I know what it's like. And it can be confusing. Of course, if you give in to confusion, which you don't have to do, because confusion is another motivation that belongs to the person. The person wants to be unconfused, because then there is a different outcome that feels more pleasurable, and then you know what to do, and then your motivation comes back, and so on. But if you don't give in to the need for lack of confusion, then there is no problem. You maintain a stability in awareness, while those paradoxes, those subtle spiritual challenges, those sort of discrepancies between dimensions occur to you. But they can feel confusing, and they can feel like a churning, and they can feel like a, what the hell's going on? What should I be? What should I choose? And it can inspire some people to go to an extreme, like to take on an extreme philosophy. To either say, you know, fuck all this, I don't need any of it ever again, and who cares about service to others and all that stuff. Or another extreme could be trying to reinvigorate motivation and trying to really be committed to a particular schedule of getting out of bed and brushing your teeth and trying to come up with a real clear intention for doing that, why you would do that. Trying to sort of seal the breach in the personal ceiling that you've made when you penetrated beyond the personal person. So there's all these sort of ways that we can fall into, that we can indulge in moments of such sort of spiritual discrepancy or confusion. So I encourage you to avoid that by simply not taking your phases of confusion too seriously. Just let them be another perception that arises. And by all means be curious about what can I extract from this paradox? What can I learn from this unique? Because it's quite rare on this planet to have that discrepancy. There's not a whole lot of people that are wondering why they should get out of bed because the person is unreal. Now, there's a lot of people that wonder why they should get out of bed, but that's out of depression and eating too much processed plant food junk and things like that. So, yeah, out of sort of the ordinary depression, people have that question, but it's very different than the question that comes from a much deeper, subtler spiritual discrepancy, a spiritual conflict or a spiritual confusion between that deeper dimension of being, which is essentially impersonal, although deeply in love with the oneness. And or you could also just say, oh, it's that perspective of oneness ultimately. And how does oneness get out of bed in the morning to pretend to be a person, to go through some mindless chores, to maintain the body, to go take a piss again and again and again just to stay alive, and then supposedly have to be excited about some kind of a purpose, right? That's different. So in those cases, I recommend you rest. You rest in awareness. You continue to watch that too. Because there is great joy, there's an aliveness in awareness itself that dispels every such need for confusion to be resolved. In fact, the joy innate in awareness, dispels the confusion, resolves the paradox. So there's a joy in that oneness that if you can rest your intention there, it will shine forth, it will shine through, it will outshine your confusion, your depression, your problem. So the whole question starts to disappear. And you start smiling. You see through the illusion of yet another seemingly complex, nuanced spiritual question. If I am no one, or if I'm not this person and this body, why should I be motivated? And if I don't even know what my purpose is? Sure, I know I'd like to help people wake up a little bit, but I don't know specifically how to express that. Am I supposed to be a dancer, a singer, an artist, a scientist, an academic? I don't know. But none of these things motivate me when I'm in the joy of impersonal being, when I'm gazing into the oneness. And so one more thing to this topic before I bring it more down to earth. What you want to watch out for if you're at this sort of level of advanced spiritual discrepancy, which can cause the confusion of how do I synthesize oneness with everythingness, or impersonal self with the personal expression, or being with acting and doing, or seeing beyond the dream. How do I combine that with still feeling the relevance and some kind of inspiration or passion that functions like a true north within this life for me to act in accordance with? When you start to interact with this particular paradox within yourself, let's summarize that as the paradox between being and becoming, or being and doing, you could say. Then my greatest tip for you, which I already sort of gave, but I'm going to give another emphasis here, is here's something to watch out for a little bit, which is if you penetrate with your consciousness, with your witnessing awareness, if you penetrate this bubble of the personal self, if you pop the bubble at any given point, because maybe you're in a stronger meditation than usual, maybe you just feel really clear in that moment, or maybe you were listening to a session and this was compounding your clarity until you realized in that moment, holy fuck, I'm unreal and it's okay. This person is just a vehicle of expression. It's totally optional. I'm not inside the body. I'm not inside the mind. I'm not inside of the outcomes of my life. Let's say that you have that sort of penetrative breakthrough moment at some point, but you're not sustaining that awareness yet. You're not able to abide in that clarity yet. And so you kind of come down back into your life, into the dream, and things start to feel more real again. And you act according to being a person again, and so on. Now, if that happens a few times like that, or even one time to a sufficiently clear degree, that penetrative moment, what can happen in your moments where you're not actively in that sort of heightened state is that you now have sort of let the air escape out of the balloon which you've popped, right? The personal balloon. You've popped it, the air has escaped. In this case, motivation, purpose. Why should I do this? What am I even supposed to do? Why should I act at all? I don't have any inspiration to become this or that. So when the fuel is sort of taken out of the equation of the person, when that bubble has been popped, but you're not presently in a particularly joyful oneness, blissful state, then that's the trickiest moment. That's when this paradox becomes a confusion. And that's when you can start to lean into extremes to cope with the discomfort of the discrepancy between dimensionalities, between being and becoming, or the oneness and the expression. Right? Because you've penetrated, and in that moment all was great. It's like, oh my God, you were laughing at yourself for being so silly, and for taking your life so seriously, and for being driven by all these motivations of a survival nature, of a sexual nature, of a money-making nature, of an acquiring nature, of a vanity nature. And you're like, holy fuck, I've been so silly. And in that moment, when maybe you've been watching a session of mine, and for 2 hours straight, you've been taken to that place higher and higher, and it's been compounding. So you feel in contact with that deeper dimension, and all is well, and you're happy to be there. But what if you wake up from just sort of an unconscious dream at night, like a night dream, and you're just kind of hazy, and you have some brain fog because you ate too much tofu last night? Then what then? Like, if your state, if your mental, emotional, vibratory state is just in that moment, it's not cleansed, it's not clear, you're not clearly connected to this oneness, this awareness that pervades everything, the eternal nature of your soul, you just kind of wake up into this, gotta brush my teeth again. Like, why would I get out of bed? That's the most difficult phase, okay? When you're not connected to what you have formally realized, but you've had a sufficiently deep realization that saw beyond the person, but you're not in contact with the aliveness of that, the bliss of that in this moment. that's when you got to watch for the temptation to fall into extremes, to fall into life philosophies, as I call it, like Neo-Advaita. Like, oh, there's nobody here. Everything's just happening. Don't be a fucking moron, please. So don't fall into that thing. Don't fall into that thing. I have no free will. There is no person. So that's a life philosophy. It's an extreme. It's a blatant superimposition of a mental construct upon the real reality. You want to avoid that. The spiritual journey is tough. It's tough as fuck. So if something in your mind makes it easy, it's probably untrue. If something in your mind makes it sound like it's a cop-out thing, it's probably untrue. You're probably falling into an extreme, a coping mechanism. You probably just want the discomfort to go away. You want the confusion to disappear. You want to just be able to hold on to something. And so you choose to either just be a person and forget all about spirituality, or you choose to believe there's nobody here, you have no free will, so your depression is meaningless. These are the kinds of extremes you fall into when you don't continue your spiritual awakening, when you don't see it through, when you get stuck halfway in the tunnel and you don't quite see the light at the other end yet. So when I say the spiritual journey is hard, I don't ultimately mean that, but I do mean this in a practical sense, that a strong component of a genuine awakening is perseverance, 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 perseverance. You have to persist. That's why I encourage you to seek an environment that supports you in this, because it's very difficult to do on your own. And so, hence, we created Massaro University with a strong community component.
Massaro University is a vibrant online community dedicated to accelerating your awakening and activating your purpose for the benefit of all. Join live sessions with Bentinho and workshops led by experienced facilitators. Deepen your wisdom, empowerment, and self-knowledge, and experience life-changing shifts week after week. At Massaro University, finding like-hearted seekers is easy and inevitable. Lifelong friendships and a shared purpose fuel profound personal and collective growth. Create your free account today at massaro.university and step into a community that's designed to elevate every aspect of your life.
You got to persist. So you got to continue to wake up, is what I'm saying. It's very rare that someone has an awakening that shifts their state into a blissful oneness one forever. It's extremely rare. If it happens for you, fantastic. But it's extremely rare. So I wouldn't count on that. Always keep open to that option. Always sort of aim for that as a possibility, because it is always already here. So there's no real reason why that shouldn't be the case. But it just doesn't often happen. Doesn't often get chosen, I suppose. So then, if you're sort of in that have-in-between state where you have realized some profound realizations, and some people have similar challenges when they've taken sufficient dose of psychedelics, which, again, I do not recommend in general, and they've had some sort of a pop-out kind of realization or some shift in perception that they can never fully return from, but then their state drops, as the substance wears off. And now you have to deal with that sort of gaping hole in the back of your personality while you're still in the vibration of being a person. And that can be tough. So that's why we need to persevere. We need to continue to be of support to ourselves and each other in this journey. We need to continue to practice. We need to continue to reflect each other lovingly, but also clearly. And we need to make our spiritual journey a commitment for life. It needs to be a trajectory that we're excited about. You might not be excited about how you feel right now every moment, but you want to rally behind a 10, 20, 30, 40-year trajectory vision. Not to be mistaken with awakening. A moment of awakening happens whenever you stop thinking and you recognize what remains. But I'm speaking of the journey, the way this is rubbing off on your old impressions, the way this is rubbing off on your body, your mind, your purpose, your expression in life, and so on. You want to continue to infuse that from a state of genuine oneness, where there is that joy, there is that bliss, there is this resolve of all paradoxes. And that takes persistence, it takes attentiveness, it takes mindfulness, awareness, continually waking up, purifying your distortions, gaining more and more conviction and confidence in the teachings and in the way that they live in your own awareness. I hope this is relevant in some way, shape, or form anyway, what I just shared. If not now, then down the line. Okay, so the one thing to remember when you feel confused is to know that you are not presently in the state of your realization that cost you that initial freedom, and to then focus, see if you can bring yourself back to that state where instead of looking at your life without a real core of a person left, see if you can look at the looker itself, if you can see the seer, if you can not care so much about the paradox and the confusion of this emptied out personal hull, this shell. Instead of keeping your gaze on that and being like, fuck, what should I do? I'm not motivated anymore. Because previously you had a high level realization. See if you can then use that to not care so much about fixing things or working things out. And then turn your gaze instead to the oneness. Turn to the joy of the oneness that's here. In other words, rest in awareness, rejoice in awareness, up your awareness. And then you will see that your gaze on the world and on the confusion will disappear, and you will get in touch again with that space where you were actually happy to see yourself as beyond the person. Okay? So whenever you're confused and sort of depressed, it's an opportunity to undepress yourself, to literally go to the light, to go to the oneness, to find joy again in that realization you once had. Not as a memory, but in the present moment, beyond the mind. Turn up the light. Don't just focus on the darkness and wonder why. Like, focus on the light. Now, all this impersonal crap aside, what's your purpose as a person? Why are you here? There's so many ways to talk about this. And I don't even know where to start, but I'll start somewhere. As I see it, most of you are souls. Well, all of you are souls. But most of you are souls that already had a strong sense of purpose or mission before they chose to incarnate here. Feel free to not believe this. Feel free to not see it that way. But I've come to realize that this is the case. But again, feel free not to believe that. But that is the context that I'm coming from with some of this talk about purpose. So picture yourself before this birth. Where were you? Who were you? Picture yourself as a soul, however that comes to you, doesn't matter. And a lot of people sort of see themselves on some kind of a spaceship or as some part of a group. And I think that is valid for a lot of us. I think we do come from a mission state prior to incarnation. A lot of us, not everyone. Some people are just more loners and they're more like learning their own lessons at this time and this is what they need to experience and so on. But a good portion of you came into this incarnation with a strong, clear intention, a sense of service to others and purpose and so on. So in those cases, your purpose is particularly shaped by this love for service to others. So you've already been part of that mission energy before you came into this birth. Then you forget because you choose to incarnate wherever, as whoever you chose to incarnate. It's like booting up a video game. So you booted up this particular video game. You know, the real player is behind the joysticks. They're not in the TV screen. They're not in the game world. But they are incarnating into that character and they're absorbed in that world for the period of time of that video game, in this case, your incarnation. Now, why did you choose to be exactly who you are? Why did you choose to incarnate where you did, to the parents that you did, into the type of body that you did, male, female? Where does that choosing come from? Where does that choice come from? And if you do picture yourself on some kind of a spaceship as part of a extra-dimensional group consciousness that's on a mission to help awaken Earth. Let's say you're somewhat aligned to that in some way, shape, or form, which I think many of you guys are at a soul level. Then the mission really becomes exceedingly simple, and you don't need to be mentally clear on your purpose in terms of it has to look like this, it has to flow like that, I have to start doing this particular thing, I have to do that particular thing. It doesn't have to be like that. For some of you, it might be crystal clear like that. You might just get that guidance, and in every phase of your life, that's clear. But it's actually very simple if you understand that. Your particular unique sort of blueprint and a feeling of purpose that has arisen out of that you can feel in the depths of your heart, that seeking impulse towards some sense of purpose. If that's based in a predisposition from prior to birth, that was part of a much greater mission, as part of a collective mission, which again, I think is the case for a lot of you, maybe not all of you, but a lot of you, then what is your purpose here? And you know what? I'm an advocate for keeping it as general as you can, especially at first. So instead of saying, my purpose is to write a book on this topic, and then to write a course on that topic, and then to go to Thailand on January 25th, 2028, and give a speech there in front of the president of Thailand. So instead of that kind of like, oh, what's my purpose? I'd much rather have you be connected to this general sense of the mission. And the way we verbalized it, in good part thanks to the late Richard Condon. Thank you, buddy. See you soon. Is the ignition of global awakening. He kind of helped spark, no pun intended, the word ignition, ignite. We were looking for, what is that word? Do we want to help global awakening? Do we want to create global awakening? Are we responsible for global awakening? Or are the ingredients already there? The calling of the collective is there. And it's like this massive collective field of gunpowder. It just needs to be ignited. And that landed for us as a good verbal translation of the feeling of the mission that both is powerful but also humble at the same time. It's the humility of, we're not doing this, we're sparking it. We're helping the ignition of what's already occurring. It's not about us. So we try to keep the self-importance out of something as grandiose as a mission. So it's the ignition of global awakening, to ignite global awakening, or to assist in the ignition of global awakening. But it's more powerful to just say, igniting global awakening. So if you can connect to something like that yourself, then it doesn't matter if you go do nothing but puzzle tonight, or meditate, or watch a video, or chat with a few people in Massaro University, or watch a movie. When you're connected to your mission, you will be inspired. You will start shaping yourself. This mission sense of self will start to shape your personality, your expression, in accordance with that mission. And if you try to make it too specific, you're just blocking yourself. Why make it so specific? You're just here to ignite global awakening, or something along those lines. So then anything, really, can contribute towards that. A conversation with your neighbor, writing of a book, singing of a song, playing a video game, creating something new, doesn't matter. You want to keep it open and free so that you have a lot of oxygen, you have a lot of breathing room, so to speak, for your inspiration to show itself to you. Whereas if you're like, no, I got to write this book on this purpose, and I've got to become this person, and I have to become president or whatever it is, then if you're narrowing that, you are actually, again, using your personal motivations typically to distort the otherwise free-flow inspiration of your calling and of your greater mission. And it becomes much more difficult to receive the spontaneous, usually playful, sometimes very serious and sincere and earnest and courageous and penetrative, but a lot of times very just joyful and lighthearted and playful inspiration that comes from your mission, the motherboard, the mothership, so to speak. Right? So all you really need to know to act on your purpose is to have a bright, joyful, deeply passionate, but at the same time lighthearted and playful feeling of why you are here. And it can be very general. The ignition of global awakening. That doesn't mean you have to dance and that you cannot sing. Doesn't mean that you have to write and you cannot speak. Doesn't mean that you have to meditate for 3 hours a day instead of 1 hour a day. It doesn't mean any of these things. So don't make things too specific. Keep an openness for the free flow so that your higher self can continually guide you and inspire you and excite you, breadcrumb by breadcrumb by breadcrumb, as you act on this nonlinear breadcrumb trail of your own crystallization, of your own becoming. And also, if you keep it more open and less specific and precise, and I need to be this and that and do this and this timeline and that timeline, then you're also avoiding a shit ton of stress along with that contraction. And you're much more available. You're much more intuitive. You're much more naturally wise and spontaneous and joyful and in a higher vibratory state where you're even more receptive to guidance and so on. So it's really not a complicated topic, my friends. What is my purpose? Connect to something that really lights you up, but that is really general like that, that allows for so many opportunities, for so many different possibilities. Such as, I invite you to connect to, you are here to help ignite global awakening. It might be a different variety. You might have a different word for it. You might have something like, I'm here to love the shit out of everybody. But it's essentially the same. But you can pick your own words, obviously. In fact, I encourage you to, if you have words that resonate more, go for it. But you get the idea. You want to be connected to this broad, pre-incarnational, large collective, millennia in the works mission. Now you can just rally with that mission. You can be a quote-unquote soldier in that army of love, of awakening, in whatever way inspires you in the moment, but keep that free. Don't bog yourself down with expectations created by personalized images of what your purpose should be, when it's this wide open battlefield of love. It's this wide open playing field of opportunity. And tomorrow you might feel excited in a different direction than seemingly you are now. It's not. It's going to be the same direction. But when it changes form at a physical level, when suddenly you feel like you've exhausted your desire to write that book, and it changes into desire to join our team or to create some other project, then it's not that your direction has shifted, unless you went from a personal state to a realization of an impersonal state, and then there was a new inspiration where you let go of your personal projections. That's possible. Then you could say, yes, it's a change in direction. But if you are already living your purpose, meaning you're already relatively free and clear and impersonal about this, you're not coming from personal motivation, you're coming from a more spacious, holistic space. Then, when the expression of your calling changes moment to moment to moment, maybe even drastically, like suddenly you want to live somewhere else or stop teaching altogether and do this instead, it's the same direction. It's part of the same mission directive. It's just a different form. And the human mind has difficulty comprehending this. It wants to know what its purpose is in terms of, this is what I should be for the rest of my life. It doesn't work that way. It rarely works that way. So you want to be able to connect to the directive, but be free in terms of what that looks like. Does this make sense? That's a general rule of thumb. This is going to help you greatly to not get your panties in a twist and get in your own way with this calling. And then also it's much easier to work together with people. Because, there's a lot of vanity still in the world of spirituality, which is okay, it's understandable. But let's say that you want to be a teacher, like you want to be a spiritual teacher, because you've realized about your calling and all that. But now you have this sort of specific intent that inspires you, but also there's this sort of personal motivational element involved, that it has more to do with vanity and it comes from insecurity and so on. It's okay, that's part of the process of purging that and purifying that. But now, you're not going to be a team player. Now you're actually going to, in some way, shape, or form, compete with your own higher meta group consciousness collective meta directive. Whereas if you don't make it so specific, like, I'm going to be a spiritual teacher and teach people, as an example, then you're much more available. If you just know, moment to moment, my mission is so simple. It's to love the shit out of whoever I meet right now. And if I don't meet anyone, then I might as well love the shit out of myself, because at least I'm there. Or, I'm here to ignite global awakening by whatever loving, honorable means necessary. And what would be the most exciting way to shape myself, to invest my actions, to persist, persevere, commit to something that is of that nature, that facilitates that. If you keep it open like that, you just plug it into the motherboard of the mission instead of my personal purpose, then now you can be a team player because your gaze is available. Doesn't mean you can't be laser-like when you need to be, absolutely. Doesn't mean you don't penetrate and persevere and commit to something, absolutely. But at the same time, you have a 360 awareness. At the same time, you're available because it's not about you. The mission is wide open. It's just this huge army moving forward across these plains. It's not you becoming a spiritual teacher, or you becoming a writer or a singer, or you being famous for this or that. That's not your calling. Your calling is something along the lines of awakening, love, light, teaching, learning. So keep it big. You could say general, but keep it wide open. Within that, you will find specificity. You will be guided because you are a specific human being, in this expression form anyway, with specific qualities, specific sort of functionalities, and those will be carved out for you. But energetically, you want to keep it connected to the biggest vision. And the mission is just igniting global awakening, assisting humanity in this transformational age. Simple. Almost anything could contribute to that if you come from the right place. Then from there, the breadcrumb trail will appear in the form of your excitement. Moments of excitement after moments of excitement after moments of excitement. So in that sense, it's quite simple. It's not a complicated topic. We make it complex, as we do with everything else, because we personalize it too much. But you could throw your hands up in the air right now, like Niels always does, and just be happy. It's so simple. Right? So, it's like that. It is so simple. You are living your mission right now, but you're too busy thinking about it. You're too busy thinking about other things. Why not just connect to the essence of your mission every day? Read, watch, listen to whatever inspires you to stay connected to that. And then you do your thing just by being you. It's very simple. Within that, you will find a unique spark that resonates for you. Look at me. I'm super specific. I'm super precise. Compared to most human beings, I have crystallized myself in great detail. I've carved myself out of the rock into a specific statue with a specific name, a specific brand style, a specific message. It's unique and precise in so many ways. It's distilled in so many ways. Yet, that is a portion of the mission. And I'm not alone in being here. So for you as well, the more you're coming from that mission as your motivational principle, as guiding your sense of purpose. So that's what gets you up in the morning. It's not your depression. It's not the perfect oneness. It is that in-between realm of, hey, there's a whole bunch of people on this planet that are suffering and they're calling for aid, they're calling for clarity, they're calling for understanding. And we're at this exciting transformational transition where we go from this rich bellicose history to this rich new dawn of humanity and potential and possibilities. And we're here for this. And that's exciting. That's worth getting out of bed from. It's worth serving that. There's benefit in that. And there's a place for your particular expression to be carved out in that whole. But that will come more and more. That will come more and more. Don't try to become someone specific that has a purpose. Just know your purpose is the mission. Just connect to that and let the chips fall where they may. Follow your inspiration moment to moment. Become sensitive to your guidance. And then don't hesitate. Go act. Go commit. If you get an inspiration, go commit on it. Commit to it. Act on it. Believe in it. By all means, be motivated by it. Be inspired by it. As long as you're coming from this mission connection and you're mindful that your personality, your vanity, your insecurity, your ego isn't getting in the way of it, is not distorting it in the name of the mission. Like in the name of Jesus Christ, how many people have been murdered and slaughtered? So moronic. Absolutely retarded. So don't pride yourself in the name of the mission. Keep it pure, keep it cool, keep it love-based. Save your soul from eternal damnation. It's not worth it being vain. And I know what it's like. I did my hair again today. You like it? It's not worth getting this mixed into your mission. By all means, do your hair. It's not, being facetious, but you get the point, I think. Keep yourself out of the equation. Do your hair if you truly believe it will aid you in the mission, and I do. I do believe that my style and appearance is a factor of what I'm here to bring. And so I don't believe in that, but I see that as part of the whole of the puzzle of this dream. And so I've included that. I've incorporated that in what I do. I'm not just a ragged-looking hippie, which is fine. They're beautiful. I envy you. I wish my mission would allow me to wear mala beads and grow a beard and just roam around India for the rest of my life. I'd love it. It'd be fantastic. Please, proceed. But there's a reason that I'm a more clean-cut appearance, that I wear a suit sometimes, that I do my hair, okay? There is a reason for that, and it's part of the mission. Now, you just want to be mindful of that and extract out of it whatever personal vanity, motivation, insecurity is distorting that. But nevertheless, to look your best, or to act your best, or to show up in a certain way, or to present yourself, it all has consequences for how people receive the message and what it establishes. So by all means, take good care of yourself. By all means, care about your appearance when it's relevant. And don't give a shit at all when it's not relevant for the mission. Right? But don't be identified with it. Don't find happiness in your hair, right? Or your eyelashes or whatever it is. Find happiness in it because you find happiness in whatever, but don't extract this specific sense of self out of it. You get the point. The mission is simple. Connect to the ignition of global awakening. Your instructions are clear. Now go out there, have some fun, cause a little bit of a ruckus, do it with as little ego and vanity as you can, and enjoy the shit out of the awareness that's already here while you love on people. And you remind them to awaken when it's appropriate to do so. Simple. Within that, do whatever you want. Go see a movie. if that seems exciting to you. Go to bed early if that seems exciting to you. Stay up all night like I do if that seems exciting to you. Who cares? Do what you want. Just align it to your mission. And let your baseline inspiration come from that. Let your directive be the mission. And your life's going to be so joyful, fun, accelerative, rich in community, collaboration. You're going to be a team player, not an egotistical, vain person. You're going to be a team player. Your joy is actually going to be lighting up this planet in the metaphysical sense. Awakening the planet. That's going to be your joy. That's going to be what gets you out of bed in the morning. Not what you can be, but that will shape what you can be. That will unlock the potential of what you can be. Those two are not separate. But you got to get the vanity out of the way, the complexity out of the way, the specific insistence and expectations out of the way, the convoluted timelines and hopes out of the way, and just wake up every day. Remember that you were already on a mission long before you became this ignorant little person. No offense. Love yourself. But you don't know better now than you did before your birth. You're fumbling in the dark. So just connect every morning. Connect to this much clearer version of you that was already on a mission for hundreds of millions of years in some cases. Yeah. Prior to this birth, this is nothing. This is peanuts. You're here to play. You're here to express yourself. You already have this emanation, this spark of your mission. It's already with you. Just by being here, you're enlivening the field. You're being of service. Just give greater voice to that. Just give more expression to that. Just be more tuned into that. Don't make it self-important. Don't make a big deal out of it. The big deal in all of it is the oneness of it all. That's the marvel. That's the real superhero Marvel movie. The marvel here is that oneness. So your purpose is to express the oneness, to learn from the oneness, and to teach the oneness. It's really simple. Again, the two aspects of the Creator's primary intention, as I have realized it, feel free to disagree. But Source, the reason that the Creator created a creation, in other words, the reason that Source expressed itself as this grand illusion of perception in consciousness, the reason of that, the primary directive, the original mission at the heart of all of creation, that cannot be denied, that cannot be escaped, that will always tug at your heart, that will always tug you back into alignment if you go stray away from that core primary directive, is two aspects, but they're very much unified. They serve each other. The intention behind the entirety of creation is for the Creator to know itself by means of expressing and symbolizing itself. Because that's all infinite absoluteness can do. It cannot create itself. It cannot really materialize itself. It can only symbolize itself. Infinity can never be expressed adequately. Creation is unreal to the core. It's an illusion. It's perception only. And its purpose is to express this infinite intelligence, its capacity, its infinite potential. And through that expression and its interaction, its own interaction with its expression in the form of all these free agents like yourself, is to then learn and awaken and know the Creator more fully. So it's to express and it's to know, in short. Of course, words don't do it justice, but that is how I would summarize it. So you are here, your core purpose as a being beyond this planet, beyond this incarnation, beyond even your soul as an individual. What is your core intent or purpose? If you're asking me, I'd say it is to express and to know more and more of the one infinite Creator. Do that however you wish. That is the gift of free will. Now, specifically on this planet, in this plane, in this dimension, at this timing, if you ask me, I'd say your purpose is to assist. Obviously, it's to learn for yourself. That's inevitable. You're always going to incarnate because there's something to learn for yourself, which aligns with the primary directive, to learn, to awaken, to know the Creator through expression, aka incarnation. It's a form of expression. But specifically then, on top of that, on this earth level, what people often call their blueprint or their sense of purpose or their calling, why you are here, specifically here, why are you not some kind of a weird maggot in some distant galaxy where there is no sun and you have no legs? Why are you Linda or Jocelyn or Rosa or Diana? Why specifically here at this time on Earth in this weird, it's no better than a maggot, human meat suit? It's just a little bit more complicated, but it's the same essential weirdness. Have you ever marveled at your body? Be like, what the fuck is this? Why do I, how in the world can I ever identify with this thing? Have you ever looked in the mirror long enough to realize there is no way that you are the body? Like, if you really haven't gotten that yet, you should stare in the mirror for a long time. Go through all the faces. Oh, I look kind of pretty today. To like, what the fuck? I'm the most ugly creature in creation. To anything in between. And let it morph and let it, until it's so weird. You know, when you say your name so many times or any word so many times, you're like, it loses the illusion of the meaning, or rather the reality. And now it's like, what? This is such a strange word, and I use it every day. You know that? It's kind of a hack in the matrix. But you can accomplish that too by looking at your own body, and specifically staring at the movements that your tongue makes while you're brushing your teeth. If you haven't tried that one yet, it's very fun. So if you feel like you're prideful that day, or you're offended by your neighbor, and oh, nobody loves you, and like this whole self-pity bullshit shit, then go look in the mirror, brush your teeth, and stare at the way that your tongue moves. And you tell me if that is you. Okay? Tell me if that is you. You're a maggot. And it's here to express something. Let it express that thing. Do not identify with it. Look at your body. It's the weirdest fucking thing. It's so inconvenient. It's ugly by all universal standards. It's just within sort of human terms that some people may find you beautiful depending on what. It's all fucking ugly. It's not like a perfectly blue electromagnetic sphere of utter perfection. No, it's this sagging piece of blood and poop and piss and... Tell me that is you. Really? Why are you offended about anything anyone would ever say about your body? How is it you? Tell me. If your tongue isn't enough, bend over in the mirror and check out your own anus and tell me that is you. There is no way. There's just no way. I mean, I'm taking more extreme routes here because some people are stubborn. You know? No, I am the body. You're not, sweetheart. So I forgot my point. I was getting somewhere before this. I got a little distracted. Anyway, bottom line, you're here to express yourself, and specifically on Earth. Why? Oh yeah, nice. Why you are in this particular maggot-like form, this complex maggot, with multiple appendages, endlessly fascinating ones, apparently. Interesting. Then, why are you here specifically in this form at this time? In addition to knowing yourself and expressing yourself. It is for humanity. It is to help these other maggots awaken to their true reality. Simple. It's humble, it's purifying, it's powerful, it's potent. It teaches you so much, it's so rich. And underneath it all is that deep love, that connection. And it's a joy, really, to find your partners from before this life, again in this life, meaning your mission partners, your buddies, your friends, and to pick up where you started, to pick up on the intention, on the thread that you had for this life. And it only gets more exciting past that point, but you got to be a team player. This is not about you becoming some special spiritual person. You're already free of that shit. This is joy. It's a joy to serve the mission every day. Can't be depressed when you do that, especially if you're in community and you're a team player. Your life will be joyful. It'll be rich. You'll be fulfilled. You'll have lots of fun.
Thank you for watching this Bentinho live session. Bentinho now hosts these transformative live sessions completely free, offering profound insights and guidance to support your journey. To attend the next live session with Bentinho, simply visit massaro.university and follow the instructions to create your free account.